Hello, you cool cats and kittens. Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. And if you don't know what I'm referring to there with cool cats and kittens, go and watch the Tiger King. Thank me later, then come back to the podcast. What's going on out there, everyone? Hope you're keeping well. Hope you're keeping safe. Hope you're washing your hands. Crazy times that we are in. And therefore, today we have a remote podcast. We have a remote podcast, which obviously is going to be the norm until we get back to normal jogging and we can go in the studio and, do all that kind of normal stuff. Right, what do I have to say? Go to visonpodcast.com. Go there, /visonpodcast. Go there, click on the tab for books. Today's guest, he is a prolific writer, so all of his books are going to be linked up there. So while you're locked down, get yourself some books to read and support the show and the show's guests by getting them from visonpodcast.com/books. Right, today's podcast is made possible in part thanks to Frontier Risks Group, home of the world's leading practical training course in security risk management consultancy. Frontier Risks Group is an amalgamation of a number of leading companies in their fields, guided by a team of equal experience and expertise in their respective domains. From security and crisis management, corporate risk, intelligence analysis, compliance, workplace investigations, trauma response, and training consultancy. Don't need me to tell you how important security risk management consultancy is in a time like this. Big time of uncertainty. So yes, you need security that you can rely on. If you're a veteran, guys, you should, or if you are looking to transition out of the military, then check out Frontier Risk Group and the course that they run, because their students now work as security risk managers, advisors, travel risk managers, security analysts for some of the world's largest organizations such as Netflix, BBC, CNN, Deloitte, BAE Systems, Apple, etc., and many, many more. You can learn more about Frontier Risks Group at frontierrisks.com. Frontierrisks.com. Check them out. So this episode is also brought to you by our good long-standing friends, Camouflage and Illuminated Designs. Camouflage is a specialist surveillance and investigations company, a brand you can rely on for their professionalism, integrity, and quality of work at all levels. These guys can do anything from looking into people online to going into another country to gather information out on the ground. They can look into the security of your property and even into unlawful partners. Not only do they get amongst it, but Camouflage, spelled with a K, are stock hits of specialized surveillance, outdoor clothing equipment, and more from the likes of Lawmate, Yukon, TRC Outdoors, and Illuminate Designs. They have a service for bespoke handmade ghillie suits, vehicle tracking systems. They've got some really cool new kit that they're putting out there at the moment. The best place for you to see it is on their social media. If you go to any Veteran State of Mind posts, I'll tag Camouflage in there, and Camouflage with a K. Search them, camouflage.co.uk, again spelled with a K. Check them out. They've got some really alley gear out there. If you're into hunting, if you're in the military, if you're just into stalking people, then they've got the stuff for you. So go and check them out. Also want to shout out, as ever, the Royal British Legion. Thank you for sponsoring us. Thank you for helping us do what we do. Royal British Legion, guys, at the moment, they are recruiting. Is that the right word? Hiring. They are hiring. They are looking for people to join the team. They need people in locations across the country, and across there's charities in it. But they need people, is the point. So check out rbl.org, and check out the Royal British Legion on social media. If you're looking for a job, what better way to do it? What better place to work than helping out the veterans of this country, especially the elderly who have given so much. So please check them out. All right. So today's guest on the podcast, we have Mr. Levison Wood, and I'm going to read you his Wikipedia because he's a very impressive bloke, and I don't want to miss anything out. So, Major Levison James Wood, born 5th of May 1982. There you go. Now you know his birthday. As a British Army officer and explorer, he is known for his extended walking expeditions in Africa, Asia, and Central America. Beginning in December 2013, over the course of 9 months, he undertook the first ever expedition to walk the entire length of the River Nile from, well, let's just say I can't pronounce that word, in Rwanda. The expedition was commissioned as a 4-part documentary series for Channel 4 in the UK. He also wrote a Sunday Times best-selling book detailing the expedition, Walking the Nile. In 2015, he walked the length of the Himalayas from Afghanistan in the west to Bhutan in the east. A year later, he walked from the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, where the early Spanish conquistadors landed, to Colombia, a journey of 1,800 miles. Following the spine of Central America, crossing the infamous Darien Gap, his book Walking the Americas became a bestseller in the UK and USA. From 2017 to the spring of 2018, he undertook another 2 journeys. Russia to Iran followed his hitchhiking adventures as a student, retracing his steps from the Black Sea to the Caspian, following the Caucasus Mountains through the North Caucasian republics via Azerbaijan, Georgia, Armenia, and Iran. In September 2017, he began his most ambitious challenge to date, a full circumnavigation of the Arabian Peninsula, traveling from Syria through Iraq, the Gulf, crossing part of the empty quarter desert in Oman, traversing Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the Holy Land to finish in Lebanon. An expedition totaling, wait for it, 5,000 miles. During the course of the journey, he was embedded with Iraqi troops fighting ISIS, where he witnessed the liberation of Sharqat and also encountered Palestinian guerrillas and Hezbollah operatives. He visited the city of Palmyra, which I'm really jealous about, which was then under Russian control. He has also undertaken numerous other overland journeys, including a foot crossing of Madagascar and mountain climbing in Iraq. He documents his journeys through books, documentaries, and photography, and now Veteran State of Mind. And Wikipedia, you need to update yourself because Lev has, he's done a lot more since then as well. He is an unstoppable force, and we're going to talk a bit about that today. So, without further ado, please put your hands together and welcome Levison Wood.
I won't forget it, that feeling of acceptance. I can be the guy that's looking back with knowledge as my weapon. Cause it's inside of you and it's inside of me. The real killer in depression is to suffer silently. The journey's rough, the road is long. You've just got to accept you haven't got to see the whole staircase, just the first.
Levison Wood, welcome to the podcast, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
It's the first remote podcast we've done. I've been wanting to do them in the studio up until now, just because I felt the sound quality is better, and then there's an excuse for piss up at the end of it. But this is going to keep costs down for a while, and it works out here out in California at the moment. For anybody listening on audio, because we'll be putting this out on audio, because we haven't got studio lights to make us look all sexy. So I'm not doing video unless I got the light.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be it's probably going to be this way for a while, and yeah, just thanks for coming on, mate. You've got a new book out, which is like it just popped up the other day because I was looking for new stuff to read, as I'm sure a lot of people are at the moment. And I came across it, and I was a bit surprised, to be honest. Like when I saw the cover, because I thought, oh, you're branching more out into the wildlife side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've written sort of 5 books about trips and expeditions, my own journeys, and I wrote a kids book last summer. And then I thought, why not look at something from a bit more of a thematic standpoint? And I've always been fascinated by conservation, particularly elephants. I mean, I've been an ambassador for a charity called the Tusk Trust for the past 7 years. And oh, has it cut off?
No, I'm good. We're good. Still recording. Still recording. So.
And yeah, and so I thought, why not write a book rather than about a specific journey? The theme of elephant conservation, and but not just that, the whole spectrum of issues that have faced elephants over the centuries, bringing it up to the modern day, and to see whether or not there is any sort of glimmer of hope for that species, but other species as well. And it was a really interesting project because I'm not an elephant biologist. I'm not a conservationist. I've just got a keen interest in them. So I had to do a lot of research, particularly into elephant psychology and biology and history and evolution and things like that. So it was a really fascinating project, something I got my teeth stuck into last year, and it's good to see it come to fruition just now.
Yes, it's mainly so you talk about elephant psychology there. How intelligent are we talking about if you were compared to, say, cats and dogs and that kind of, like, how intelligent is an elephant? Or maybe a mortar platoon, you know, like. Kind of...
I mean, so elephant. There's something called the Mark test, which was a psychological intelligence test that was developed in the 1970s to try and understand animals or other species self-awareness, and basically it involves, I mean, you might have seen these videos on YouTube where you put a mirror in front of an animal and see what happens. I mean, they put them in the jungle and see what happens if a panther or a gorilla or whatever looks at itself. And most animals, the vast majority of species, will just look at itself in the mirror and just assume it's another animal. So if you do that to a dog or a cat, they start barking, or they'll sort of lose it a bit. There are very few species that understand that it's them, and the why it's called the Mark test is, what they'll do is they'll take an animal and put a mark, whether that's a bit of ash or, I don't know, a marker pen or some paint on its forehead, and if they realize that it's them, they'll sort of touch it or whatever. And it's the great apes, so, you know, gorillas and monkey and orangutans and chimpanzees, they get it, they understand that it's them, especially when they look around the side of the mirror, and then they're like, okay, that's me. Dolphins can do it, bizarrely, because dolphins are highly intelligent. Some species of whale, the beluga whale particularly, they're really intelligent. And crows. Yeah. Certain types of crows are super intelligent, and the only other one is the elephant. So they're really, really intelligent. They're very highly sociable. I mean, they've got very complicated family structures that are actually very similar to humans. I mean, basically the females all sit together, they hang out together, they raise the young together. There's a sort of matriarchal society, and then the males, when they get to like teenagers, they go off in gangs with other boys, causing trouble, eating people's crops, trampling things down. And then when they get a bit older, they get bored of that, and then they go wandering off on their own. So there's a lot of similarities, and the way they communicate is also quite remarkable. They can use this deep grumble, a contact call in their larynx, that basically emanates these noises that can be communicated over up to 20 kilometers. Wow. And they actually pick these vibrations up using seismic sort of sensors in their feet. So there are some theories that suggest that the herds of wild African elephants can actually pass messages from herd to herd, which would explain some things like during the tsunami back in 2004, how elephants just knew there was something coming and they all headed for the high hills. Right. Or indeed, if there's danger, if there's poachers, or if there's a war going on. I mean, I was in South Sudan a few years ago when the civil war kicked off, and it was amazing how quickly all the locals said the elephants just disappeared. They knew that there was violence, they knew there was a threat, so they all disappeared back into places like Uganda or the Congo. And then 10 days later, after the civil war was called, a ceasefire was called, the elephants just came back. I mean, it's remarkable, really. Yeah. So they're very bright creatures, which is why I think they deserve a bit more attention. We don't know a great deal about them because they're obviously very difficult to study in the wild, because they can be very dangerous. So there's only a handful of researchers across Africa that really understand all that much about elephants.
Right. The crow thing interests me as well, because it's one of those animals because obviously in the UK, you know, we're very strict on what you can and can't kill, and crows are one of the ones that you actually can, which is, you know, I think, you know, you can just, because they're a pest or whatever, and that's kind of like, that's quite sad now that I realize they have some kind of what would you call this? What's the word? Some kind of like
self-awareness. Yeah, I mean, there's some lots of good stories. I mean, crows, they can take nuts that they can't crack open with their beak. They know that they can take them. They fly them onto zebra crossings. They'll put the nuts down where the cars will come over. They'll crush them, and then they know that when the lights go red, they'll come down and pick up the remains so they can eat them.
See, that's fantastic. We shouldn't be allowed to kill that animal. That animal is too intelligent. There's a lot more idiotic animals out there that we could be eating. What's your stance on eating meat and stuff? And just to digress a little bit, I was a full-on meat eater until very recently, actually. About a year and a half ago, I decided that I was going to try and quit red meat, and pretty much have. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still, if somebody serves me up a steak
and I've not sort of told them that I'm not eating it, then I'll eat it. So I'm not sort of too strict or rigid about it, but I just don't eat that much red meat anymore. I mean, I remember when I was in the army, you know, you sort of get served up bacon every morning, and that's it, isn't it? But yeah, I've just kind of got off the red meat, and I feel a lot more healthy.
So it was a health decision rather than an ethical one?
No, it was more, originally it was environmental, because like the South American beef industry is one of the biggest contributors to the human carbon footprint. I mean, the amount of Amazon rainforest that gets chopped down for cattle grazing and soy production, which is the main cattle feed, you know, has basically screwed the environment. So I did it on that basis, but also I just generally feel better by not eating that much red meat. Yeah. So yeah.
I'm going to have to hit pause, mate. It's fucking starting to rain. I don't believe this. Fucking California. In California, for fuck's sake. So, this is a fucking first.
It's glorious in London. We've got like 22 degrees.
Just give me 1 second to grab my lead in, mate. I can't believe this. Right, mate. Let's pop you in there. How's that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, fucking rain. Right, won't be needing those anymore. Yeah, so obviously, because it's a big, obviously ethical question now, isn't it? And even if your ethics are fine with the idea of eating animals, there's still this environmental issue about it. You know, so you might have no dramas whatsoever with the fact that you're eating meat, but it's because it's not just the cutting down of the forest, is it? It's then the fact that you then have this methane production then on top of it. So it's like a double whammy, really.
Yeah.
So what kind of like when you've been traveling, like what are the attitudes to elephants that you've seen like differing from country to country? Because like you were saying, the young elephants trampling crops. You know, it's going to be, you might have a hard time telling that guy that the elephants deserve to be able to roam free and, you know, all that kind of side of things.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues. So I did a trip last summer. I walked across Botswana with a herd of elephants, which was an amazing trip, which we filmed for a documentary that's coming out on Channel 4 in the UK, I think next month, and that will be going out in the States on Animal Planet and Discovery Channel. And the idea behind that, as part of this wider project of trying to understand elephants, was to really make a natural history program, but not just about the species, the animals themselves, but also to try and get an understanding of this human-wildlife conflict and find out what the local people think about living alongside wildlife. And you're right, because when you've got in places like Botswana, where you've got actually quite a high density of elephants. There's about 120,000 elephants in Botswana, which is a third of all African elephants. And the reason for that is because they've actually had pretty stringent environmental and conservation policies, which means that all the other countries where, like Angola or Zambia, Zimbabwe, where there's massive levels of poaching and corruption, the elephants have just congregated in Botswana.
Right.
So,
and that goes back to like you were saying about the fact that they can...
Yeah.
You know,
exactly. But the problem with that now is that the perception in Botswana is that, oh, we've got too many elephants. I mean, the fact they haven't got too many elephants, the numbers have actually remained pretty similar over the years. The problem is now there's a human population growing, so there's just more contact with wildlife.
Right.
So what that means is that, you know, elephants, like humans, need to drink pretty much every day. They need to eat at least every couple of days. So that the elephants can eat for 18 hours a day if they get the opportunity. So they need access to grazing. They need access to water, rivers, and of course that's where people live, along the rivers. Yeah. So as a result, there's this increase in this friction and competition for resources. And that inevitably involves, you know, it ends up in some accidents, and elephants do go and eat people's crops. They do trample down fences, and occasionally people do get killed. And it's very tragic, but we've got to remember that we're building on their land. We're building, you know, roads, we're building fences, and it's disrupting these ancient migration routes that have been the elephant's lifeline for thousands of years. So it's kind of, we have to kind of find that balance. But obviously for local people who don't necessarily have that much education, it's a tough ask, and it's a big ask, because they're like, well, hang on, my kid's just been killed on his way to school. Of course we're going to go and kill the elephants. Of course we're going to want to continue hunting and poaching, because and that sort of land and habitat loss that's happening is all over Africa is actually a far bigger threat now than poaching, which has kind of grabbed the headlines for many, many years, because that has resulted in 20,000 elephants a year being killed, at least. Some years it's been up to 40,000, which is caused a massive decline. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I guess we're a similar sort of age. I mean, in our lifetimes, elephant numbers have halved.
Wow.
So it's a real, the numbers speak for themselves, really. But for the future, looking forward, that's only going to get a lot worse as the available land for them to roam is eaten into.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one, because it's easy for me to sit here right now and say, oh, that they should all be protected and have the right to roam. Again, if you're living in poverty, and then you don't have that crop. I mean, look, right now, people having to take a month or two off work. A lot of people in the UK are paycheck to paycheck, and in the US are paycheck to paycheck. So, in a lot of these developing countries, I could just say how devastating that would be. And also, generally, I think when you go to Africa and some of these other parts of the world, the price of life feels cheaper in general for a lot of things. Like the human price of life is often quite a lot cheaper. So it's harder for people, some people, to kind of conceptualize that. What other kind of what other wildlife did you see or learn something about that kind of surprised you as you were going on this journey?
Well, I had this amazing local guide called Carne, and he was a San bushman, and the San people are the original race of people from southern Africa. I mean, they've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and they are very much in tune with nature. I mean, up until the 1980s and early 1990s, they were some of the last real hunter-gatherer nomads in the world.
Right.
They didn't live in villages. They just slept under trees and would forage for roots and berries, or they'd hunt. So this guy, he was, same age as me. So he grew up, living as a nomad, and an incredible character, but his understanding of nature and wildlife was something else. I mean, he could literally replicate the sound of any animal, you name it, any bird, so if we wanted to see lion, for instance, he would just make the noise of a distressed antelope.
Yeah. And
then the lions would come to us, which was like absolutely insane. There was one day actually where some lions walked through our camp where we sort of put our tents. They walked straight past our tents, and they'd gone to chase down a buffalo. So we followed them, which in itself was like, wow, because we were all on foot, So we followed this pride of 3 lions as they stalked and eventually sort of took down this buffalo. And it took them a good few hours, because the lions were being quite lazy, and they were just sort of teasing it and going up and taking a chomp out of its backside. So it's a pretty brutal thing to see.
Cats are fucking horrible, mate.
They are, yeah. But what was amazing was we watched this from a distance of maybe 15 meters, this buffalo being killed. And when the lions finally killed it and they'd had a bit, to eat, Carne said to me, he said, do you want to go and have a look at the buffalo? I said, what do you mean? He said, let's just go and have a look. There's lions there just eating from it. He said, that's fine. He said, this is how we used to get meat back in my childhood. And, his mother would have him as a baby on his back, while his mother would just go up to the lion kill and help herself. And so I said, okay, well, if I trust you. So we just walked straight up to these lions, and they didn't budge until we were about 3 meters away. And I was bricking it, but Carne was like, look, just follow me. So we walked straight up to these lions, and right at the last moment, they gave a big roar and then just darted off. They didn't go far. They went maybe 5 meters away, and then just hung out on some trees and watched us. And Carne we went right up to this buffalo, and he explained how he would, just take a bit of the meat and then leave the lions to it.
Wow.
And that was just an amazing experience to get quite so close to these predators. And it reminds you, that ultimately humans are the apex predators, and we're the ones that everything else is afraid of.
Well,
but the problem is we live in this fear bubble. We're always scared of nature, and that's because we kind of lost touch with it. But the reality is we are the big kings out there.
Yeah, because I think they just have it. it's the same way as like I always think if you see a bit of hose pipe on the floor, you walk around the corner, a bit of hose pipe, you just automatically think snake, don't you? When you jump back.
Yeah.
And then the animals seem to have the same imprint in their mind that they see, they see humans and they try and stay away from you if possible, because you think all the crocodiles out there, all the sharks, all the tigers, all the lions, the amount of actual human deaths as a result of it, tiny. It's just
absolutely tiny. Yeah,
just so tiny. But we have this terrible fear of it. I think it's the fear of being eaten alive by something. Is like right now we're seeing with this whole COVID thing, people are terrified of something that they can't control.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same. It's the idea of being put onto the bottom of the pile is very scary for people. Talking of tigers, have you watched The Tiger King?
I'm on episode 7. I think there's one more to watch, is there? So yeah, I'm almost finished. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, let's have you've seen enough to have a good impression, an impression. What is your impression of The Tiger King?
I mean, they're just lunatics, aren't they? All of them. There's not a sane one amongst them.
It's mental. Like the stuff that flies under the radar on that show that you don't pick up on. Like the guy, one of the guys is like, "Yeah, I was the inspiration for Scarface." He's only in the show for 2 minutes. That is like the level of like madness going on in there.
I mean, it's quite.
Did Carol Baskin feed the husband to the tigers?
100%.
Definitely.
Definitely.
100% did. What's your position on those kind of zoos, those zoos and people being able to own big cats and exotic animals?
Yeah, I mean, it's pure ego as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this is just, from my perspective, I don't think anyone should be able to own big cat predators in those sorts of conditions. I mean, it's just, why would you, apart from just showing off so that people can put photos on Instagram?
That's what I use my cat for. I use my cat for Instagram, so I totally agree with you, mate.
Yeah. But I think that there's a place for animals, and I think that if the amount of energy and sort of attention that went into these zoos and personal private collections actually was spent on real conservation where it matters in Africa, then we'd be in a far better place with protecting species. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a real sort of dichotomy that you've got, because people, I guess, on the one hand, that's the only experience they'll ever have of a tiger is seeing it in somebody's garden. But it's not the right place. It's just it's inhumane, and it's tragic, because most of these tigers will end up, just living a pretty terrible life.
Well, and this is one of the reasons as well that I've because without doubt you see those animals. I remember going to a quote unquote zoo in France when I was a kid. And it was just bare. It was like, it was basically like squash courts with an animal in it.
Yeah.
And you could see that these things were distressed. It was horrible. We all left. The family left there. We all fucking felt absolutely horrible. But it's one of the things that it does worry me about the position that we're in right now with this kind of thing of people locking themselves away in apartments and things. It's like, look, if something with the cognitive ability of a bear is going to get distressed being locked up and not having contact with other people, then a human being certainly is. And you and I are on a Zoom call right now, which is great. Technology is making this a lot easier, but I do think the long-term effects of isolating people, both individually and collectively, I think is quite a dangerous thing. The other thing as well, dude, I've started to think recently, just going off on a tangent here while we're talking about people or animals locked up, is how inhumane the isolation of people in prison is. Like this whole, when they put people in, what do they call it? Solitary confinement.
Solitary, yeah.
I mean, I think, right, if there's anything good that could come out of this, if people could just agree that solitary confinement is not like something that should be done to people just because they've been playing up a little bit. But yeah, to get back on the animal thing, do you think there'd be any feasibility in because one of the things I drove across America the other week to help my friend move house, and it's just, you've been to America, the vastness of this place is incredible.
Yeah.
Is there feasibility in it? So what you're saying in Botswana, there's, obviously, like there's a growing population of people. There's a population of elephants. The two of them are clashing. Is there feasibility in cutting off parts of other countries and relocating animals and giving them a fresh start in new territories, or are they so tied in with their migratory routes and that kind of thing that that's just not feasible?
No, elephants, there can be translocation projects that work, but the problem is, until quite recently, people didn't really understand the social structure. So you can't just pick, say, a random bunch of 5 elephants and just put them in another country. They have to be within their family groups. There has to be the right ratio of males to females. There has to be the right level of experience within those groups. So you need a matriarch. You need a sort of a wise old female elephant who's going to lead all the females. You also need a couple of older male elephants who can keep the youngsters in check, because without that, they just get rowdy because they've got no teachers. And it's the same as human population.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big argument within the hunting community in Africa. It's like, well, we only shoot old males because they're like useless now. It's like, that's bollocks. It really is, because it's all well and good killing the old males because they're going to die soon anyway. But like, the old males are the ones that instill discipline amongst the youngsters. If you don't have that, then the youngsters are the ones that go rogue and start ripping down fences because they don't have the understanding that humans are going to kill them back. So it's just a moot point.
The adults, the older elephants understand the consequence.
Absolutely. They live for 60 years or 65 years. So there's a real understanding. They're very bright. They understand what, they testing them. There's cases of an elephant sort of going up to electric fences, and when they get a shock, they're like, okay, I get that, it's an electric fence. But if they want to get it anyway, some of the older males who are just a bit more of a bully, they'll lead the younger males up to them and then just shove them into the electric fence to tell them to go first, which also gives them a good lesson as well. So there's amazing stories like that. But the point is that if you're going to like move elephants to a new area, you've got to make sure you've got the right family groups, the right individuals to make sure that it works. Because if you just chuck a bunch of young males there, they're just going to go roaming off to try and find females. If you put females in there on their own, they're going to go off looking for males. So like, you've got to make sure it's balanced. Now, there's one of the best ideas that I've encountered is these cross-border, what they call them trans-frontier mega parks. And the idea is to kind of join up all the national parks, or certainly the ones close to each other, using elephant corridors and keep people out of those areas so that elephants can roam. They'll soon learn to adapt to the new corridor, so they don't have to follow exactly the same paths as they always have, as long as there is some way of getting to where they need to be. But you've got to be pretty strict with people and say, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed in there. And people don't like that. But it's the only way. Without that, elephants are just going to get forced into smaller and smaller little pockets until they just disappear.
Yeah, and like, it seems like you're saying, if the pockets are useless as well, because they need to cross from one to the other. And it's that seems like a great idea of using their adaptability, to our advantage by giving them those corridors. Okay, while we're on the subject of older, wiser, because I know we have a lot of young men listening to this, you were a soldier. You were into 3-para.
I was, 3-para.
We have a lot of people listening who are looking at joining the forces or are youngsters in the forces. So now that you are a older bull male, what kind of advice would you give to the younger listeners?
I mean, look, for me, joining the paras was one of the best things I've ever done. I mean, it just gave me a sense of confidence that I don't think I would have ever got anywhere else. Gave me experiences that I never would have received anywhere else. And more than anything, I think it gives you an amazing network of contacts all around the world. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be able to do all these different expeditions had I not got my little black book of people that work in the charity sector, NGOs, security, whatever it might be, media, the UN, to be able to ring them up and say, look, do you know any local fixers or any local guides or linguists? And as a result, it's just made my life a lot easier doing what I do. And I think when I set out to enter this world in the first place, having left the army 10 years ago, I think the only reason that I was given a commission by the powers that be in the world of television, and probably the publishers too, was because I had been in the army, and it's got such a strong and powerful reputation that people will put a trust in you. And so I highly recommend it, even if it's just for a few years, to go and get some experience. You know what it demonstrates? It demonstrates a commitment to something, which is something that's in short supply in this day and age, and people's attention spans. And there's certainly an attitude that people kind of just don't want to commit to anything for more than a year or 2 years job-wise. Whereas if you say, I'm going to go and join the army for 4 years, 5 years, you learn a lot from that, and you get a lot from it. You're in a position where you can contribute something, you can learn new skills, and you make a great network and a bunch of friends around the world.
Yeah, no, I would do. I think exponentially as well. It's like that time, even that 4 years, you'll get so much more out of that 4 years than an equivalent 4 years in another one. Like, I always talk people about, say, operations. Some people have just done one operational tour. That 6 months of their life has a overbearing influence on so much good and bad. Could be very good over so much else that they've done. I feel like for you and I were very fortunate in the timing that we have. Just by the grace of when we were born. We were very fortunate in the time that we were in the army. When there was a lot of expeditions going on, when there was
stuff to do,
going on, because it does definitely go in peaks and troughs of kind of what people get to do. But I think, it's one of those things, the networking, you see. You hear people talk sometimes derogatively about the old boys network and stuff. But so for any young people listening, don't be made to feel that networking is some dirty thing that, it's beneath you. It's the sooner you start doing it, the sooner you will doors will start opening for you in all different directions. I feel like, especially in the kind of, especially in the the enlisted ranks, it's seen as a bit of it's like a bit of a dirty thing in the old boys network. And I think I think that the officers they do a lot better doing that. They get a lot better of a head start doing it. But I feel exactly the same way, mate. Like a lot of the jobs that I do in writing and things all come from the network of the army. I think like you're saying, people know that you can stay the course with a commitment. I think it's also that that there's a level of trust as well, that they feel like it's like, well, he's probably 99% of blokes in the military that I've met have been trustworthy blokes who you can rely on to see things through. So when you came out of the military, did you have your heart set on this kind of lifestyle that you're leading now? How did you build this? Because you seem like a very happy bloke. Could all be an act for the cameras. but no, you seem like a very happy bloke, mate, who's living a fucking great life. These things don't happen by accident. So you've had some design onto how to make this happen. So like you said, networking would be one thing. How have you gone about kind of building this life that you lead now?
So I left in almost exactly 10 years ago. I think it was January 2010. And my first love, even before the army, was always travel. I mean, when I was 18, I couldn't wait to escape and get away from home and just disappear off and go, bumming around the world. And that's exactly what I did. And I, did what a lot of youngsters do and backpack around Southeast Asia and India, and I grew my hair and grew a beard, and, it was great fun. And that never really left me, even when I joined the army, because I went to university and studied history, and that was kind of all related, because I studied the history of travel writing, which is kind of probably one of the few people that's ever studied history and got to use it. But it was that in itself. And after that, I did a bit more traveling before I went to Sandhurst. I hitchhiked from Nottingham, where I was a student, all the way to India, along the old Silk Road, and I went to Afghanistan and Pakistan. That was all before I joined the army, and I got a lot out of that, because it kind of taught me that all these places that we see on the news that we relate to danger and poverty and conflict and badness, actually, when you get there, 99% of the people there are also pretty good, and they'll look after you. And I was taken in by people across Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iran, all the places that you see on the news for the bad reasons, and shown incredible hospitality. And it gave me a real faith, I suppose, in human nature, which kind of was at odds with some of my colleagues' attitudes in the army, I have to say. And they all thought I was a bit of a dick for going to Afghanistan, but that was probably only because they were a little bit jealous that I'd been there before.
They thought it was like a homeland situation.
Yeah. So when I left, I knew I had set my heart on the fact that I knew I wanted to go and travel a bit more under my own steam. I mean, I think, and I would never criticise the army, but I did feel as though it didn't really tickle all my creative juices. And I definitely, there was, I had an itch to scratch in terms of wanting to do something a bit more creative, something, I'd always loved writing, something I wanted to do. One of my ambitions always was to just write a book. That was kind of like what I knew I wanted to do. How I was going to get there, I didn't really have a clue. So when I left the army, I just, I volunteered for a few charities in Africa. I got as much experience as I could writing free articles for travel magazines, and did a bit for Lonely Planet and the guidebooks. Taught myself photography just because I knew that that's probably a skill that would complement it. And all those things combined over the course of about 3 years, so until about 2013, I ended up setting up a business, which basically as an expedition leader and guide. So I was taking people to usually post-conflict zones, but in a sort of capacity of looking after the logistics and the security. So, we took people horse riding in the Hindu Kush Mountains in Afghanistan, took people skiing on the Iran-Iraq border, took people camel riding across the Sahara Desert in Sudan. And I think after 3 years of doing that, I got enough experience and probably credibility that I started getting approached by the media, by Discovery Channel, Channel 4, saying, oh, can you take our journalists in? So the media side of things kind of came in that way. But I still had this desire at the back of my mind. I want to go and write a book, do a big trip, do a big expedition, something that maybe has never been done before, so that I can just satisfy that urge. So I just came up with the idea of why not walk the River Nile, something that nobody had done before. And took a couple of years of planning for that, and they did it, and that kind of set the ball rolling. And
just did it. Simple as that. Just did it.
Well, it was nine months of walking. That was like 4,500 miles.
Wow.
And it was a bloody long trip and very hard. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong in many ways. And
that's with a couple of years of planning as well.
And that's with a couple of years of planning. I mean, it was an epic journey. But I suppose go back to that word commitment, it paid off. And having sort of stuck at it, and there were lots of times when I thought, I don't even know if I can carry on with this. But by completing that, suddenly all the doors opened at once. And I was then offered every opportunity I could ever have dreamed of, more money than I'd ever imagined, all at once. And so it kind of just like, wow, what do I do with this? And I knew that I didn't want to sort of then just waste it and squander it. So I just then I effectively wrote a bucket list of the next 5 trips, and then I've done one a year for the last fantastic. 5-6 years, and it's I've only just got to the point now where I'm having like time to breathe and actually take a bit of downtime. It's been a bloody roller coaster ride and some pretty close encounters along the way, but it's all been worth it, because now I just feel really content with having done all the things that I could ever imagine, and get to the point where I can hopefully share some of that information and knowledge and inspire other people to kind of follow their dreams.
Yeah, and well on that one then, when there was those times where you wanted to jack it in, or sorry, you thought about jacking it in, what was it about it though? Like when you've got another 3,000-4,000 miles to go, what was it that made you say like, no, I can't, I can't? Because you must have had some fortitude coming into all this to have gone through P Company, etc. So you obviously had some mental fortitude even as a child, or as a young man, I should say. So how but like a lot of people do P Company, and not a lot of people walk the Nile. So what was that kind of like that step up in mental toughness, I guess?
I think in true military style, it was probably the shame of failure.
Yes.
having committed to something, I had no desire to go home and admit that I'd failed.
It's better to die on the side of the trail.
Exactly, yeah. Which I know is a bit bloody-minded, and a lot of people wouldn't understand. Certainly people outside the military community would just think, fuck that. But no, it was that. And ultimately, I sort of... I knew that it was either that or go and get a real job. And there was no way that was ever going to happen.
Mate, both of those things you just said are both just terrifying forces. The failure, and so I did. This is not quite walking down the Nile, but just it kind of proves the point of the fear of failure. I was in Vegas a few weeks ago, and I went to a party, and I was shit faced, and I thought it'd be a good idea to get up and DJ, and I was like, like people, like a proper dance floor and everything.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a terrible idea, and I was drunk, but I did it anyway, and I pressed stop on the wrong music, so all the music cut out. And every now and again, this is about 4 weeks ago now, every now and again I'll remember that memory, and I'll just feel like drenched in
shudder
shit,
down your spine,
and I'll just want to curl up. So the idea of having to, like, I can't even imagine what that pressure would have been like when you were doing something like that. I mean, it must have been horrific.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, there's that. There's something about, I don't know if it's something that people are born with or what. What's your opinion on it? Are you born with this kind of, like, obviously you've got very high goals. You've already achieved a lot. I dare say you have a lot more that you want to achieve. Where does that come from? Is that like an intrinsic thing, or was it instilled into you?
It's a really good question. I'm not sure if I know the answer to that. I mean, I definitely had, I think I had whether you want to call it a dream or a vision from quite a young age. I mean, I knew from the age of 6 that I was going to join the army. I just knew.
Was that by comparison to what your friend, like, you were?
No, none of my friends were interested in it. It wasn't like I grew up in it. I didn't go to I come from a particularly military family. My granddad was in the war, and I grew up on his stories. And both my parents are teachers, and they just encouraged me to be curious. And they gave me a real respect for education, even though I was a rebel and I was always in trouble with my teachers and the like. I kind of got away with it because I did actually enjoy reading. Right. And that gave me a lot of inspiration. And, I just read like the Odyssey when I was 10, and just maybe it was a bit of self-delusion on some part that I kind of just from a very young age, I wanted to go out and slay dragons and, sort of conquer mountains. And, I wanted to live in this kind of, I suppose, fantasy world. And whether or not that's realistic, I mean, I guess it goes to prove that you can do it if you put your mind to it. In a way. And I think that's what I've done over the last few years has, for most people, probably just been like, why would you want to do that? But for me, it's like just fulfilling all those boyhood fantasies. Yeah. And maybe it's a bit of a Peter Pan attitude, but frankly, I don't care.
No, I love it, dude. I mean, there's this romanticism as well. I think when I think back to, I love reading the old, like, Bernard Cornwell books about Sharp and, the George MacDonald Fraser books, the Flashman books, these old empire stories where people are like, even if you were in the army those days, it'd quite often be like, you just be right off you go, make your way to Pakistan, or India as it was at the time, make your way to the Hindu Kush and make your way to the Hindu Kush and report for orders there, and like all this kind of adventure. And I think I agree with going back to something you were saying about the army. I love the army, but at the same time, I felt like it wasn't individual adventures to be had. It was like the battalion got the adventure or kind of like, and because growing up on those books like George MacDonald Fraser, I really like the idea of just being given a fucking letter and being saying, right,
just cutting about,
make your way to the other side of the world, and then you get there and there's a rebellion going on or something. I love that. How about the writing then? So you wanted to be a soldier from an early age. Where were you like, because I feel like reading and writing quite often go hand in hand. If you're a prolific reader, quite often people, whether or not it's something that they then pursue, I think you at least get the idea that you want to write. If you're reading all the time, it's like if you're watching football all the time, you're going to have a fucking fantasy about being Wayne Rooney or someone, or whoever's in football these days. I don't watch football, but
yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, my brother was big into his football as a kid. I really wasn't that bothered at all, and I just wanted to, I suppose, I just loved history books and stories and storytelling, and like you say, growing up on Flashman and Sharp, exactly the same. I wanted to write my own stories and have my own adventures so that I could tell stories, and also I think a genuine, I just love the art form. I really thought growing up that you know, the written word is the noblest form of art. You know, it's a legacy that will last forever.
Do you feel that then? Do you feel about these books that you've written now? Does it give you a warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're going to be around after you're gone?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, it's I feel it's something that if my grandchildren, if I ever have any, which is highly unlikely, but you know, if it gives them a chuckle in 50 years' time, then that'll be great. And if it gives other people's kids or whoever reads the books some entertainment or inspiration, these, you know, I'm not saying they're going to change the world, but the amount of really positive feedback I've had from people literally from every country in the world almost has been quite astounding. People who are, you know, I've had letters from somebody who is 99 years old saying, wow, you know, can you please like sign me a photo because I'm on my deathbed, but I really enjoyed your book. It's like, wow, that's amazing. Equally, I've had like 6-year-old kids write to me saying, I want to do what you're doing when I grow up, and every sort of everything in between, and that is really heartwarming. And I don't do it for the acclaim. I think that would be the wrong reason to get into any art. I think you've got to do it because you love it genuinely, and that you know, anything else is really just a positive benefit bonus, really.
Yeah, and also because you're terrified of having a 9-to-5 job, which
there is that too, yeah.
Because there are days. I had one yesterday. I had a day yesterday where I just could not stop writing. It was just fucking coming out, and it was good. And I did book, and I did script, and it was great. And then there's other days where it's the blinking cursor, and you're just like, fuck. And on those days, the fear of having the 9-to-5 is the powerful motivator.
Certainly is.
Because the thing is, we're right, mate. Like you say, it is an art, but it's also a job. It's like it's part of your job, and you have to treat it that way. I think sometimes where people come stuck a lot of the times when they're trying to write a book is they're trying to make a work of art rather than it's like.
I mean, first and foremost, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be any successful artist, you've got to be a businessman. I've learned that the hard way because I tried to write stuff that just for my own benefit, and that's just vanity. Like Ernest Hemingway, when he's questioned why do you write, he said for the money, and people are like, really? And he was being slightly tongue-in-cheek, but unless you're writing for an audience, what's the point? And I'm sure, you know, it's nice to keep a journal and write letters to yourself or your loved ones, but that's not a serious writer's occupation. If you want to sell books, you've got to write for an audience. You've got to really understand your craft, and you've got to be a professional about it, and that can be hard work because sometimes inevitably you will have to make compromises. You'll have to sometimes submit to the editors, or you know, give up on a book halfway through because the public opinion has changed about a subject or whatever it might be, and that's hard because but ultimately it keeps you on the straight and narrow. So you're not just doing it for your own ego; you're doing it to satisfy a real requirement.
Yeah. You have to be able to walk away. I wrote a book last year, dude, that I've walked away from at this point, and I put 100,000 words into it, and it's hard. But then I look at it again. You try and look at it from a business point of view, and I look at it as like my father's an estate agent. He's had deals fall through in business. You know, it's how it goes. It's just because you've written it and created something doesn't mean that anybody's under the obligation to buy the fucker.
Absolutely.
Now, I think where this has changed has been with self-publishing. Like I'm experimenting with self-publishing at the moment with some books. But I think one of the problems has been just because you can self-publish doesn't mean you should self-publish. Like I think self-publish has got a bit of a dirty name to it because so much crap has been put out. Because it's easy to do, and just because it's easy doesn't mean you should do it. Like there's a lot of, I love my publishers, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a lot of things that I would get fucking frustrated with. I'm sure, exactly. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but having a gatekeeper can be a very good thing, when it's filters out, filters out a certain standard. Because even though obviously like any art is subjective, we know the difference between fucking dog shit and something that's actually done. So When you write, do you have like do you write while you're on the move? Are you writing on then, or are you taking notes and then you write? How do you binge write when you get back? What's your kind of the process like, as they say?
Yeah, well, to be honest, when I'm out and about, on an expedition, there isn't really much time to write because you're either walking or traveling, or you're setting up your tent, or you're negotiating with a local tribal chief for the price of a chicken. And so by the time you've done all that, you're just fucking knackered. So I try and do just a page of notes, just bullet points every day. And then when I get back, that's when I properly write. I mean, I suppose I keep myself on the straight and narrow by having a strict deadline, and that's usually imposed by the publisher, or I give them a deadline, and then I know I've got to stick to it.
I just want to jump in here as well, just to explain to people that, again, I think is the difference between maybe a military attitude, because I'm sure you're aware, most people in the writing industry miss their deadlines.
Yeah,
right? And
I've never missed a deadline yet.
Well, I know, and I think that is one of the reasons why I certainly think it's been true for me, and like I'm sure it's true for you, is if you actually turn in your work on time by the deadline, publishers will want to work with you, because they can actually rely on you to then so you're not fucking up their schedules. But the amount but the figure I was like, the percentage I was told by some editors about how many people miss their deadlines is staggering. Like it's your job. Like, but I think it comes down to it comes down to the old hate hour thing. You can't just turn up 30 minutes after hate hour.
Just when you fancy it, no.
So I think that's important. So yes, when you do you binge write when you get back? Do you give yourself a month like locked away and all stuff?
Yeah, so I, depending on the length of the book, but if if we're going on a sort of whatever it is, 300 pages, sort of between 80 and 90,000 words, I try and write 1,500 words a day minimum, usually 2,000. And I treat it like a normal 9 to 5. I'll do 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and bosh the whole thing out in 2.5 months.
Yeah, I want to second what you're saying there. That's exactly that's how I do it too. You have to set yourself deadlines. You have to set yourself targets.
You can't be precious. My mantra is, write 1,500 words a day, even if it's shit, because then you can use the next day to edit it. Just get the words down on paper. Don't be precious. You can't be a perfectionist, and then edit later. And that is the only way I've found to keep myself pumping out the words day in, day out. Because the moment you have any self-doubt, or if you think, oh, I'm just not getting it, then you lose that momentum. And I think by having these imposed deadlines, and I'm kind of almost forced into it because I've booked myself out for 18 months ahead, and I've committed to, say, an expedition in January next year, or a book tour, or a speaking tour, or wherever it might be. I don't have any flex in that schedule. Or the TV show I'm doing is going out, and therefore the book needs to go out at the same time. The book has to be done on that deadline, whether it's good, bad, or completely shit. So that's what I do, and I get it done. Simple as that.
And the thing is, right, once you've worked on your craft and you're a competent writer, shit is not going to be shit anyway. It's going to be, you might have days where you're putting out pure gold, but even what's not that standard is still going to be, it's not going to be absolute drivel, is it? And I think that's very important, is keeping that forward momentum going, whether it be writing or fitness is a great example of it. There's going to be days where there's going to be days where you're going to be tired. There's going to be days where you're going to be just wanting to stay in bed. But if you just do a 30-minute walk on that day, you've kept the momentum going.
You've done something,
of going. And I think the momentum is something I think is really undervalued by people, that they don't realize that, you haven't got to have like home runs every day, but if you just keep hitting small targets every day over the course. So if your target is, let's say someone's got a job and their target is 500 words after work, they hit 500 words a day. By the end of the year, they'll have a book.
Absolutely.
You could do that quite easily while having another job.
Yeah, 500 words is straightforward. I mean, anyone can do that.
I think the thing is with books, mate, is that people instead of looking at the process and saying like, look, if I do 500 words a day, I'll have a book in a year. They look at a book and go, how will I get a book? It's breaking it down into those micro things. How did it feel for you when you had that first book in your hand?
I was just over the moon. I couldn't quite believe it. I mean, that was, for me, that was my dream come true. And I thought, wow, what do I do next? I mean, that was 6 years ago now. And I genuinely thought life complete.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh shit, hang on, I need to do something else now. And then it never gets any less terrifying, because it's like, okay, now I've got to do this. I want to continue with this trajectory. If you'd have asked me when I left the army, would I have written 10 books in the next 10 years, I would have just pissed myself laughing. But that's my plan. I'm on number 8 now, and a couple more to do in the next 18 months, and jobs are good. Do
you feel like the pressure builds the more you put out, or how do you
it kind of comes in waves, I think. There can be times when the pressure's really on and you think, shit, is what I'm doing is right? And there's definitely times when I bit off a bit more than I could chew and was just saying yes to everything and going out every single night on the lash, or going to like gallery openings, or living on a diet of canapes and prosecco, wearing a dinner jacket. I mean, it was proper sort of.
And you live in London, right?
Lifestyle, living in London. Yeah. It's full on, and I got to a point where I was just knackered by it all and just wanted to go on a proper beach holiday and just chill out. And I kind of knew that was kind of happening, and made the decision to actually just start saying no to everything, and say, unless I really wanted to do it. And that was a mindset shift for me. And the funny thing is, I suppose any freelancer, whatever industry you're in, you always put the pressure on yourself. You feel guilty by turning work down because you're never sure when the next job or gig might come along. But the irony is, when you actually start saying no, I think with that like confidence, people think, oh God, he's actually really valuable. I'll offer you more money, and so even more jobs come in. And it's the irony of that. The whole industry is that actually the more sort of the better you become, the more you can turn down, and the irony then is there's more opportunities open up. So that's been a real learning curve for me, to just be able to say no and to be able to pick and choose what I really want to do.
I think the other thing on that as well, mate, is one of the things is that I know I certainly need to get better at, is saying no to myself, because it might not even be that the projects are coming from other people, but I might have, I've got all these fucking great ideas.
All these ideas, yeah.
So it's saying no to yourself, like,
sure.
And understanding as well. I think this is just something that happens as well as you get older. Is your concept of time changes. So when you're in your 20s, the idea of waiting 3 years to do something just seems insane. And now I'm 36 now, and I've got projects that I'm working on now, which I came up with 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? It wasn't the fucking end of the world that it's been 3 or 4 years, But I think it's that patience. It's
learning patience is a really important thing.
Yeah. So what's next for you then, mate? What should people be looking out for? I know you said you got the shows coming out.
Show's coming out next month. I've then got a photography book coming out in September. That's the next project. Nice. It's basically a compilation of the last 10 years' work, all in one book, which is great. Really
are you doing a gallery thing?
Yeah, so I'll be doing an exhibition in London and hopefully New York as well.
Oh, nice.
Which would be cool. And then I've got another book out in January next year, which I've already written. So I've got 3 coming out, which is great. And that one,
can you tell us what it's about?
Yeah, it's called The Explorer's Mindset, and it's a bit basically a sort of philosophy, smart thinking, kind of a bit of self-help. It's kind of all the lessons that I've learned on the road, sort of broken down into themes, and that's kind of my way of, I suppose, sharing some of the secrets and tips of the trade to people that want to learn more.
Yeah, awesome. I do have on the podcast website, we've got a section on there with books, which has got all the books from all our guests on there. So you're about to double the size. You're about to double the size there. So anybody listening wants to check out Lev's books, go to there. Do you have audio books as well?
Yeah, I've done all audiobooks for all the books so far. So
do you narrate them? Do you narrate them yourself?
Most of them, I've bailed on a couple just because sitting in a studio reading my own stuff can sometimes be a bit dull.
Yeah, well, you got a good voice on, mate. You got a good voice. I find that I find it a lot easier to consume audiobooks now than I do.
Yeah.
I do books. Where can people find you online, mate?
Well, I've got a website, levisonwood.com, and on my Instagram, I put all my stuff on there as well. And then all my books are either on Amazon, if that's your shop of choice, or you can get them at any decent bookshop.
Yeah, support your local independent bookshops.
Absolutely.
Fuck the local independent bookshops. Go to visonpodcast.com/book. Order them through there, and that way we get our little cut of the Amazon affiliate link. So
absolutely.
Yeah, get them through there, and then everybody wins. Oh, mate, cheers for coming on, pal. I've enjoyed this chat. I like to have you on again when you have your next book out. Get
Perfect.
You on that one. We'll talk some mindset. Right, I'm going to hit stop on this. Right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that podcast as much as I did. Yeah, Lev is just an absolute machine, isn't he? Very inspiring bloke. And if you guys want to check out his books, visonpodcast.com/books, or look him up on Amazon. But yeah, get out there and support Levison's work, because it's just nuts, really, isn't it? Like, we're really lucky on this podcast. We get so many inspiring people coming on. Someone's just like walks the length of the Nile, and you're like, oh, you just think, holy fucking shit. Like, so I'm really, really glad to have had him on. Let me know who you want on, guys. We'll keep reaching out to people. Let me know. Get in touch. Do you want longer podcasts? Do you want shorter podcasts? Do you want more podcasts? Do you want less podcasts? Get in touch. And if you can make a post, if you enjoyed the podcast today, if you can make a post and let people know about it, we'd really appreciate it. If you can leave a review on iTunes, if you haven't done already, then we really appreciate it. Anything that just helps us grow the podcast. As I mentioned before, the bigger we grow, the more guests we can have on. I love every single one of the guests that we've had on so far. We've got a lot more to come. But like some of you guys, some of the requests that we're getting, we really need to show that the guests, that it's worth their time coming on, because for Lev to give us an hour of his time, then we'll massively appreciate it. And same with all these other guests. We have to, it's a two-way street. We get to learn from them, but we have to show there's something in it for them in return as well. So yeah, guys, thank you so much, and I'll be back next week with another episode, and love you. Bye.
Yeah. Listen. Shout out Teaser. You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've got to let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show, and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain, or maybe you should thank me. It's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose.